Hello there, I'm Miss Alana from the Universal branch of the Boys and Girls Club, and for today's YAI Fine Art activity, we're going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day by creating a shamrock painting much like this one. We're going to learn a bit about St. Patrick's Day, how to draw a three-leaf clover, also known as a shamrock, and how to do the wet-on-wet acrylic paint technique seen here. So let's check out what our materials are for today and then we'll get started. The materials we need for today's fine art activity are some acrylic paint. Our colors today are inspired by the flag of Ireland and St. Patrick's Day, so you need greens, orange, and gold. You also need a canvas or paint paper to work with, paintbrushes, a cup of water, and a pencil and eraser. While we gather our materials, let's learn a little bit about what St. Patrick's Day is and the meaning of a three-leaf clover. St. Patrick is the patron saint of Ireland and was known for spreading the religion of Christianity into Ireland. St. Patrick's Day observes the death of St. Patrick and celebrates his legacy in Irish culture. Today, we're going to learn about the history of the shamrock in relation to St. Patrick's Day. A shamrock is a clover with 3 leaves. The word shamrock comes from a Gaelic word meaning little clover. The 3 leaves of a shamrock are said to stand for faith, hope, and love. The 4-leaf clover, or lucky clover, is an uncommon variation of the 3-leaf clover and widely considered to be a symbol of good luck, but it is not the same as a shamrock. Over time, the shamrock has become a symbol of Irish heritage and culture and can be seen often during St. Patrick's Day. So that's why today we are going to paint a shamrock. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is learn how to draw a shamrock. And remember, a shamrock has 3 leaves for the clover. So I have a piece of paint paper here. You can use a canvas if you want, and then I have an eraser and a pencil. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by drawing a heart kind of off center on our paper. So you want to make it kind of big, but you also want to make sure you have enough space on each of your sides that it's going to fit on there. So it's just like a heart shape. And I'm drawing it very lightly with my pencil so then it doesn't show up too much once I paint over it. And then once I'm satisfied with that, I am going to draw 2 more down here, so it's going to be 3. So if you have trouble drawing hearts or the clover parts, what you can do is draw one on a scrap piece of paper, and then you can cut that out and you can use it as kind of like a stencil or a template, and then you can trace that one, and that way all 3 of your sides of your clover are going to be even. Or you can also follow like me and try and draw them along. Real clovers are not perfectly symmetrical, so it doesn't matter if yours is perfectly symmetrical or kind of off. It's all up to your own personal taste. So I have my 3 hearts now, and then I am just going to draw a line coming out of it and another line at the same point, and it's going to get slightly wider as it goes out, and then I will connect the 2, and that is it for the clover drawing. I'm just going to go in and kind of erase those extra lines that I don't need, and then we're going to start painting it. Alright, so now that I have my drawing cleaned up a little bit, we are going to fill in our background. So I have my paintbrush with me and I have all of my paint colors. So we're going to do a orange background because the colors of the Irish flag are green, white, and orange. So orange is going to be our background. And what I'm going to do is slowly outline all of this and then fill in the background. So you're going to do that with me now. Okay, so now that I have my background done, I'm going to take my light green paint and I'm going to fill in each of the clovers for our shamrock. Okay, so while my paper is still wet with my paint, what we're going to do is take the darker green color and we're going to use that, and that's going to help us make that ombre gradient effect. So I'm going to grab a smaller paintbrush. So I have my smaller paintbrush. I'm going to take the darker green color that I have, and I'm now going to outline the green that we just did on each part. And then once I have it outlined, I'm going to wash this part off of my brush, and then just using a little bit of water and the paint that's still wet on my paper, I'm going to blend those colors together. So I just have some water and I'm lightly brushing back and forth to make those colors blend with each other. So this is creating that gradient effect that we want. If you think you have a little bit of too much of the darker color, you can either add more water or you can actually grab that lighter color and start to blend them together with each other. So now that you have that, we're going to do that for each one of our clovers on our shamrock, and we're going to do it on the stem as well. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we have our gold paint and we are going to outline all the way around our shamrock. So where all of our dark green is, we're going to go and follow that line with some gold paint. Alright, so now we have our gold outline done. We can see it's very nice and shiny. If you want, you can go in and do some polka dots in your background to make some gold coins. So I'm going to do that with mine, and I'm going to use my gold paint yet again, and then I'm just going to do different size polka dots in my background to create those gold coins. So I have a flathead type of paintbrush, and if I hold this down, the straight edges of it make the perfect circle. So I'm going around and I'm going to do that all over my painting. So now that we're done with our painting, let's take a close look at it. We have a really nice shine going on from that metallic gold paint that we used. We have this wet on wet gradient going on within our greens. We used green and orange because those are the colors of the Irish flag. And we have everything within our drawing to represent St. Patrick's Day. So that is it for today's activity. We learned that a shamrock is a 3-leaf clover and a symbol of Irish culture and heritage within St. Patrick's Day. We learned how to draw a shamrock, and we learned how to do a wet on wet blending technique with acrylic paints within our painting. So that's it for today's YAI Fine Art lesson. Thank you for joining me. I'm Miss Alana, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.
Hello boys and girls, this is Miss Pia from West Sanford, and today I have another exciting painting for us to do, and I thought we can visit the beach. I'm sure we're all missing the beach after this cold winter we've had, and it's about that time we're getting ready to go to the beach. So I have done one painting in canvas, which is something you can use, a canvas, or you can use cardstock paper. It works on cardstock paper. Okay, and I've also done it on a canvas board as well. So you're gonna have 3 choices to do your painting on. And for this painting, we're going to need a couple of things. One will be a toothbrush, a sponge. You will need 2 brushes, a thin one and a medium-sized one. And I like to work with soft bristles. We don't have to work with hard. Hard bristles are really good for oil painting. Since we're using acrylics, the soft ones are much better. And make sure it's line brush because they're very good at making lines, and you can go from thin to a thick line with the brush. You're going to need a pencil. Once again, it's my mechanical pencil, which I really like working with sometimes. So, mechanical pencil. You're going to need a couple of things for your painting. One will be 2 containers. I like to work with 2, and I'll tell you why. Since we're going to be working with a very big contrast of color like blue and white, I like to keep my water separate because I like to take all the blue out of my paint before I go into my white. Especially with white. White is a color you want to have as pure as possible. You don't want to mix it with other colors. So that's why I keep 2 containers. So there isn't a little trace of the previous color when I use my white. We will need a palette. Now for the colors, we're going to need white, what I call beige, But if you don't have beige, you can easily make this by mixing white with a little bit of brown, and you can get a tint. Remember we talked about tint, so you can do that if you don't have beige. We're going to need a brown, a red color, and a blue color. I'm using a navy blue color, but as long as you use a dark blue color, you'll be fine. So those are all the things that we are going to need. So let's roll up our sleeves and get to our creative space. For the first part of our painting, we're going to cut out a star. And for that, you will need your cardstock paper, your scissors, and your pencil to draw in your star. After you've drawn in your star, cut it out. Once you have cut out your star, make sure the horizontal part of it is no wider than 1.5 inches. Now we will take our canvas or cardstock paper and lay it down horizontal, and with our stencil of the star that we just did, we will take our pencil and put that star at the bottom about 1/3 from the left edge of your canvas or your paper and trace in your star. Then you're going to draw a squiggly diagonal line across the canvas. And now we're going to take our blue paint and squeeze some on your canvas, on the upper part of your canvas, and do the same with your white paint. And now with your sponge, you will take the sponge and dab it over that paint as to mix it, but you do not want a flat surface looking color. You want it to be very irregular, and stick to that squiggly line as your border that you drew. And we are doing our water, and water is not just flat, it has many different shades. Once you have completed doing your water, take your white paint, dab some on your palette, and with your medium-sized brush, we're going to go on the outside edge of your water, on the outside. Now that you have finished that, we're going to take our palette and add some beige to it. This will be our sand. We're doing a sand now so we can give time for the blue and white to dry, because you do not want to mix those two colors, because you will not get the purity of the color if you mix them. I found it easier to outline my star as I continue doing my sand. It becomes much easier if you do it this way, so give it a try. Once you have completed your sand, take your brown paint, put some on your palette, and with your toothbrush, after you've taken the toothbrush and soak it and dry any of the excess water off the brush. You just want a damp toothbrush. Take that toothbrush and go over your brown paint. You don't want to soak your toothbrush in the paint, you just want a little bit of paint, and with your pointer finger you're going to put it under the brush and start spraying your paint, and this will create that sand effect. By now the upper part of your painting should be a little dry, so we can take our palette with our white paint and a medium-sized brush and begin to do the edge of the water in white. That way you're doing it in pure white. There's no mixing of the colors. And you'll get a nice pure white, which is what we want to create that sea foam. Once you've done the whole of the diagonal, you're going to take your clean sponge and dab it over the white. Make sure your sponge is clean from the previous use. That way it doesn't interfere with the white and you get a nice pure white for your seafoam. Now with your palette and your medium-sized brush, you're going to go and dab some white paint over that white border seafoam that you just made. Make it irregular. It doesn't have to be in a pattern, but make irregular move so that way you create a more realistic foam. Take your thin line brush and dip it into the white paint and begin to draw vertical lines coming out of the white foam onto the blue or from the blue into the white. But make sure they're vertical lines and they're irregular, do not follow a pattern. Once you have finished drawing a few vertical lines, you will take your palette and with your line brush, you're going to mix a little bit of the beige and the brown together and make a darker beige. And this is going to be your shadow around the edge of your water. So you can, with this line brush, go from thin to a thick line around that edge where the water meets the sand. Here's a fun fact for you boys and girls. Did you know that less than 5% of the planet's oceans have been explored? We know more about space and the moon and out there than we do about our ocean. And last week, marine biologists, those are scientists that study the ocean, discovered a new species of fish that has been living, not the same fish, but the breed of fish has been living for more than millions and millions of years, and it was just discovered. Now that we have completed our little shadow, we're going to take a red paint and do the outline of the star from the inside with your line brush. You're going to outline that star. I tried using my red, pure red, but I thought the red was too intense, so I'm going to change it a little bit and make it more a coral color. So if you mix your beige with your red, you're going to get a nice coral color, which might be better for your starfish. So give it a try. Once you have completed filling in your star, take your palette and with your thin brush, dip it into your brown and beige. Make a little mix, and I think this mix may be a little bit of red. So we're going to make a darker version of that coral color we just did, and we're going to outline your star. This will make the star feel like it's a three-dimensional star. It won't be just one flat star. So go around the edges and make it all the way around. And once you have completed that, you can thicken the lines to make it a bit more three-dimensional. Once you have finished doing your star, take your palette and take your thin line brush, dip it into the white, and begin to draw your white spots over your star. For this, hold your brush vertically, lightly over your star. You do not need to stamp your brush onto the surface, just very lightly. And to have a variety, try dipping it in a little bit of white and then mix your white and beige and you get different color spots. Well, boys and girls, we're coming closer to our finish, and I hope you have enjoyed doing this painting with me. And see you at the beach. Bye-bye.
Today we're going to learn how to make super simple paper flowers. All you need is some Elmer's glue, scissors, a stapler, a couple pieces of colored copy paper, and a piece of scrapbooking paper. Let's get started. This is what the first flower we're going to learn how to make is. It's really simple and easy to do. You're just going to need to take a piece of colored copy paper, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again. From there, you're going to want to find something in your house that is round and is around 2 inches across. I found this little tiny wine glass that worked perfectly. So what I did is I made 4 circles right across my paper. I had to put them really close together in order to make them all fit. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and you'll see when I cut out the first one that even though I'm just cutting out one circle, I'm actually making lots of little circles because of the way that I folded my paper. So I'm going to keep going until I have all of these circles cut out, and I'll have lots of little paper circles to work with. Each flower only needs 3 paper circles, so I'm going to just grab 3 of these blue circles and go ahead and start on my first flower. So we're going to go ahead and start on our petals. I'm going to fold this circle in half, kind of like I'm making a little book, and then I'm going to take this little folded circle and face it away from me, like the spine of the book is like facing towards me. Then I'm going to fold it again and then again. So there I have my first 2 petals for my flower. Okay, so we got to do that 2 more times. I have my new circle here. I'm going to fold it in half, face it away from me, and then I'm going to fold it in half again, and then in half again. So if you think of these petals kind of like a little V shape, I'm really folding that last time just along the bottom of the V. And I'll explain that a little bit more on this one. So I got my first fold, my little book, spine facing towards me, and then I'm going to fold again towards me. And then this time I just go whichever way kind of feels like right, whatever feels like the way it wants to go. And then here I'm going to really just fold on the bottom of that V. And that just helps the petals stay a little more rounded. If you do flatten them out completely, don't worry, you can kind of push them back out later on. But I just noticed from doing it that helps the petals stay rounded. Okay, so I got my little V's here, and I'm just going to go ahead and line them up. And I'm going to staple right along that middle crease. Two staples should work just fine. So this is what it looks like when it's stapled. As you can see, I squished it pretty good, but like I said, we can always round it back out. So I'm just folding it out, trying to bring that flower look back in there. And then I'm also going to put my fingers in the petals to help round them out. It's looking pretty good, but I do have these annoying little spaces on either side. So I'm going to take some Elmer's glue, put it right along that staple, and then just squish it together a little bit. And at first it might seem like this isn't going to work, but I promise once you're done, just leave it alone for a bit and that glue will dry and it'll really look like a nice flower shape. And that is how you make a really simple little paper flower. So you'll notice the more you do this, the easier it gets. You'll actually get pretty fast at making these, and then you can have a whole little bouquet, or you can put them in whatever project you're working on. So next we're going to learn how to make another really easy flower. This one's more like a pinwheel kind of style. All you need is a piece of colored copy paper, and what we're going to do to start off is to go ahead and fold your paper in half. Once your paper is folded in half, you can open it back up and we're going to cut right along that center line. So for this kind of flower, you only need a half of a piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is fold it about 1 centimeter, and then I'm going to flip it and fold it. And I'm going to keep on doing this until my entire little piece of paper is all folded up. Try to keep each piece of paper that you fold to be as even as possible with the papers that came before it. You'll see why this makes for a better flower in just a minute. So this time it worked out for me that I didn't have any extra paper hanging off the edge, but if you do have an extra piece of paper, you can just take your scissors and cut it to make it even. Next, I'm going to take my scissors and just cut a slanted line right along the top of my little rectangle here, and I'm going to do the same on the other side, and you'll see that both of my slants are pointing outwards. Now I'm going to fold this whole thing in half. And I'm going to get my stapler and I'm going to staple right on that crease. Now when you unfold it, you'll start to see that flower take shape. Once again, we have these little gaps on either side of our flower, so we're going to need to secure it with some glue. So I'm taking my Elmer's glue and going just on either side, just a little bit should do the trick. And then I am going to do my best just to work the flower with my fingers to get it to stay. This is a little tricky, so as long as you get it in a good place where it'll stay, you can just kind of leave it alone for a little bit, and once that glue dries, your flower will be nice and strong. If it's not working for you and you can't get the glue to stick long enough to dry, I do recommend taking a paper clip and just clipping the 2 petals on either side together, leaving that, letting it dry for a bit, and then coming back and taking the paper clip off. Once your flower is secured with glue, we're all done learning how to make this flower. I think it came out pretty cool, but you'll notice that some of the edges of my flower are a little dull. That's just because my folding wasn't completely even, and then when I cut the slants, that's when it got to be a little off, and so some of my petals are dull. But of course, the more practice you get, the better it is. And just in case you missed a step, here's me going over the whole thing one more time super quickly. The next flower we're going to learn how to make is this super cute little rose. It's actually extremely easy to do. So I'm going to take a piece of scrapbooking paper this time, and you want to make sure your scrapbooking paper is double-sided. It is really tricky to find scrapbooking paper that's the same color on either side, so this one has two different patterns and it'll work just fine. So I have a bowl and I'm going to go ahead and make a circle. Once I have my circle, I know it's really hard for you guys to see, I'm going to go ahead and cut out around that circle that I made. This does not have to be cut out perfectly. It actually doesn't make a difference whether it's cut out well or not. So once I have my circle, I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to cut out a spiral into this circle. So I'm not drawing it out or anything, I'm just going for it, and I'm doing the very best that I can to make it even. So I think my spiral ended up being around like a centimeter width. So whatever width you choose to go with, just stick with it, do your best to make it even all the way until the end. So once you have your fun spiral, I'm going to go ahead and start rolling. So it's a little tricky to get started. I did a bit of folding just to start me off. And then once I got to the place where I can roll it, I'm just going to roll this entire spiral up, and that's going to give me that rose look. Okay, so once we get to the end here, we want to be really careful. So you'll see I'm really lightly letting go of my rose and letting it unravel just a little bit. But I want to be careful because we do need to secure this with some glue. So I'm going to flip it over, put a little bit of Elmer's glue down at the bottom, and just make sure that all my petals are secure right onto the bottom part of my rose. And once you're sure that all your petals are good and secure with some glue, you are all done making your rose. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you had fun making paper flowers. There's a lot out there in terms of different kinds of flowers you can make, so feel free to keep going, learn how to make all different kinds. You can play around with different papers or patterns and just have fun with it. I'll see you guys next week.